I'm Megan, and thanks for joining me today for this practice for the juicy psoas. Psoas is a very popular term, particularly on YouTube. I'm well aware of that, and therefore I have a number of different practices. So know that if you're looking for a gentler, more emotional release of a psoas, I would recommend my sweet psoas practice, which I'll put a link up for. I also have a shorter version of one of the releases we're going to do today, and I will also put a link up for that video. But this is a full practice that to me is about hydrating our psoas, so we don't need to stretch it, we don't need to strengthen it. We really want to just allow it to start by feeling the buoyancy of the earth underneath us, and that's where we're going to start today. So what you will need, a number of different things. You'll need a chair for the very end when we relax, something to put your legs up. A couch would work fine too. Different sizes of balls. I've got a drier ball here, a tennis ball, a softer ball that's the size of a tennis ball. Grab whatever balls you can around the house. Your dogs won't mind. And then a washcloth to put on top of them. I've got my mat, and you're going to need a block, or if you don't have a yoga block, stack of books about the height of a block will work. So gather those items, and we'll get started. The first thing we're going to do is, as we do with all somatics, is land and locate, except we're doing it standing today. And we want to find out the action of the psoas. How does it move our leg, and where does it attach? So we start by standing and feel yourself into your feet, because that's how we're landing and locating. And this helps the psoas. When we can land and locate in our feet, because it's a spinal stabilizer, it doesn't have to work quite as hard. It knows where we are, so you can rock back and forth. You could pick up your toes and play them like piano keys. And we try to allow the hips to be over the ankles, and then the shoulders. Check your shoulders if you're forward at all. Take a big breath into the chest, and then just sigh. Let your shoulders fall. So we're getting this nice alignment or postural place of ears over shoulders and shoulders over hips. Check to see your diaphragm's not sticking forward, because if your diaphragm's forward, then your lumbar spine might be a little bit too curved. That's that duck butt, and the psoas, the tight psoas, can cause that because it attaches to all 5 of your lumbar vertebrae. It actually starts up here at your 12th vertebrae, but it attaches to all 5 of your low back muscles. So think of the low back as having that natural curve. We don't want to get rid of it. That's the job of the psoas, to have that curve and to help distribute our weight evenly, but to soften the curve. Let that low back be long and soft. And just feel yourself from that position, and then we want to notice both legs. We're going to go ahead and stand on the block with the right foot. You're going to hold on to a wall, a chair, something, so you're not trying to balance yourself. And then I'm going to go ahead and lift my left. So when you first lift up your leg, your left hip will be below your right. Lift up the hip a little bit so that your hips are even. That left hip isn't below the right hip. So it almost feels like you're plugging your thigh bone into your hip. Find that space, and then gently bring your leg as far forward as you can comfortably. You're going to feel your quadriceps engaged, the front of the thigh. So this is an action of the psoas shortening or contracting, bringing the leg forward. It's a hip flexor. And then slowly bring the leg the opposite way behind you without bending the knee as far as you can go. So this is requiring that the psoas lengthen. And watch as you do this. Typically we'll bend the knee, or the shoulders will come forward, or you'll feel that lumbar spine really contracting. So these might be signs of a tighter psoas, or shorter, dehydrated psoas, I like to think. But we're just checking it. Go back and forwards, and we're finding the action of the psoas. Back and forward. And then we can also check the upper body. Just take your left arm and reach up, and notice now again as you're doing this forward back action. Do you feel any tightness through the side body? Because the psoas can affect pelvic floor, feet, the lumbar spine, and even your shoulders, your upper back, all of the muscles in your back muscles. So we're just slowly going back and forth, just noticing. And then just let that hip drop and gently swing it back and forth. Like you're just, so it's like a pendulum. The action of the psoas is a pendulum for the leg. Step off of the block. or book, whatever you happen to be on. We're going to take one of the balls, and I'm going to put mine on a washcloth so it doesn't roll around. I'm going to recommend a tennis ball. You want something with a little bit more buoyancy to really hydrate your foot. And we're going to put the ball underneath your left heel. You're welcome to turn all the way towards the wall. I'm not going to put my backside to you, but to fall into the wall to support yourself more, that might feel better. Or you can just turn sideways. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see. The ball's underneath my left heel. And I'm going to bend my knees and push down. So I'm pushing my heel bone into the ball. And then I'm going to let go and ride it back up. So think of the buoyancy of gravity. You're pushing into gravity, and you don't really need to pull away. You're just going to ride the ball back up. So pushing down, the action, the effort is in the pushing down, bending your knees, and riding it back up. So why are we doing the feet when this is a psoas video? Because your psoas, one of its many jobs, as a spinal stabilizer, is to read your position in space. So how do we know where we are when we're standing is by our feet. And unfortunately, we wear shoes all the time, and our feet aren't allowed to feel a lot. So we're going to wake up the feet, which we call as the first diaphragm of the body. Certain parts of our body have more communication with each other than others. So the feet, the pelvic floor, your respiratory diaphragm. And then we'll switch it around, so just feeling that heel. If I weren't doing this video, I'd be very quiet right now. Hopefully you are. Just feeling the heel. And maybe this is all you get out of the video that you really enjoy, and that's great too. Then we're going to take the ball, though, into the center of the foot. You want to keep your toes relaxed, because now we're doing more of a myofascial release. So let the toes just fall like they're dipping into the water, and explore that soft tissue in the middle of the foot. So you can go into the inner arch, the center of the foot, the pinky toe side. If you feel any tightness, or what we sometimes call trigger points, you'll know because your toes will tighten, your ankle will tighten to try to protect. Allow them to be relaxed. And what you can do if you find a trigger point is instead of rolling it and moving it, just stop moving. So I'm still keeping my feet aligned. Let your toes relax, and think of the weight of your torso falling into the left hip, and then the weight of the left hip and thigh falling into the foot. So I'm not pushing into it either. I'm just allowing. I'm allowing gravity to let that left leg line fall into the ball. I'm breathing into that space. So that's a nice thing to do if you do find a more sensitive area, instead of trying to roll it. The other thing is you don't have to be right on the sensitive area. You can go a little bit to the side. Then the next position, we're going to move along, is you're going to put the ball underneath the toe joints. So just behind the toes, you can think of the ball of the foot. So not on the toes themselves. My toes are still hanging over the edge. My heel is on the floor now, lining up my toes with one another. I've still got a nice posture, and I'm looking ahead, because there's not much to look at down there. Look ahead at the horizon, smush the ball, bending the knees, and ride it back up. So for some people, this is a pretty deep stretch, because you're stretching your calf, your Achilles tendon. You might be feeling that. Go slow. If it's too much, get a smaller ball. Watch that you're not pushing with the toes and squeezing the ball with the toes. You just want to let the toes be soft and think of the wide Fred Flintstone part of your foot. Pushing it, some people won't get that, but you're using that wide part of the front of your foot, and you're smushing the ball. And once again, I'm not lifting myself away from the ground. I'm letting the ball do the work, letting gravity release me, or gravity will lift me, releasing. So there's a buoyancy that happens. Last one. And we're just allowing our upper body to feel this. Now you're going to take the ball last position, and just like you're getting a pedicure, you're going to spread your toes around the ball. Grab that ball with your toes, and then you can rock. I'm going to turn this way again so you can see. You can squeeze and release the ball with the toes. Your heel's still on the ground. But you can also rock the foot from side to side. That's just a nice little ankle stretch. We do a little inversion and eversion of the ankle. If your ball's slipping all over the place because you got a slippery floor like I do. You can be doing this on your yoga mat. Back and forth, side to side, or just that squeeze and release. And you're just connecting with all the muscles in the sole of your foot, top of your foot, your toes. Toe creases correlate with the neck, so watch particularly with this one that we're not doing the head forward. Align your ears over your shoulders, keep some space, your collarbones are smiling, and then we'll come off the ball. And then just stand again. Stand on your right and left side. So this is that what we call the body mapping part. You can even close your eyes if you feel stable or put your hands to the wall. Feel yourself as if it was your psoas reading your body on the left side and the right side. And do you sense any difference? Is it in the foot? Is it in the leg? The hip? Could be in the torso somewhere. Just allowing yourself to feel. And I'm big in languaging. Use descriptive words to describe any differences, any similarities in the two sides. Landing and locating again, but something might be different. And then we're going to go ahead and switch sides. So we'll be taking the block underneath the left leg. You can hold on to a wall if you'd like, or left foot, maybe books. And then I'm going to lift my right foot up, but I want to plug that right hip in. So I don't want the hip to be below the left hip, so you might have to lift it up a little bit. Feel this space of the whole circumference of the hinge at the hip, and come forward as far as you can, very slowly. So that is the psoas in contraction, shortening, and go back. And I know particularly for me on this side, my tendency, if I don't pay attention, is as my leg goes back, I either bend the knee, or what's more likely is I do this shoulder forward thing. So I really want to keep the alignment of ears over shoulders and shoulders over hips, diaphragms tucked in. Notice if you feel, as the leg goes back, does your low back kind of crunch and shorten, or do you feel tightness through the front of the thigh? So what we want to sense is that the glutes and the hamstrings are activating as the leg goes back, because that's one of the things that will happen with the psoas when it's not juicy, is it's overworked because these other muscles are not doing their job. So it should be glutes and hamstrings taking that leg back. The psoas is just acting as the pendulum. As we come forward, we want to feel our quadriceps. You can feel those front hip flexors. And you can try this side too. Sweep your arm up overhead. You might sometimes, where we don't feel tightness in the low body, you can even feel it in the upper body just by taking the arm overhead. And swaying that leg. And let the hip drop. With arm up or down, just gently swing the leg a few times. That's the movement of the psoas, the action of the psoas back and forth. And we'll come off of our block, your book. Let's do the foot release with the right foot. So the ball will go underneath the right heel first, right on your heel bone. Feel that heel bone. Line up your toes in a straight line. Feet are about as wide as your hips, so I still have a nice posture. But I'm going to push the ball or smush it on the way down, bending my knees, and then just allow it to pop back up or ride it back up. Smush it and ride it back up. And there is that tendency to want to look down initially, but then keep your gaze at the horizon. Feel yourself, not only from the standpoint of the foot, but notice when you push into the heel, can you feel those muscles in the back of the leg activate? Push it down, and then it's like gravity just lifts your leg, your whole leg back up. Ride that buoyancy. One more through the right heel. So waking the feet up. I call our feet our little brains, the brains of the spine. And then we'll switch. We'll go into the center of the foot, and you're going to play with that fascial tissue, so relax your toes. So I think of our body as having 3 brains. The most familiar, the brain in our head. We also have our enteric nervous system, which is your brain in your belly, and that is very, very in close relationship with the psoas. So if you have stomach digestive problems, that can often be psoas, because your psoas goes right through all of those organs of digestion and elimination. And then we have our little brains in our feet. that help us to land and locate through the spine. So right now you're feeling, sensing the sole of your foot, keeping the toes relaxed. If you do find a sensitive area, consider instead of rolling on it, just stopping and being still and letting the weight, feel the weight of that beautiful thigh bone, that right thigh bone, just let it fall in, right? And feel like your torso is letting go into your pelvis, and the pelvis is letting go into the leg. And you're just yielding to gravity underneath that foot. Soften the toes. So I found kind of a cranky spot, and that's what I like to do. Instead of pushing through it, just be with it, slowly releasing weight. Then the next position we do is we come across the front of the foot. So you want your toes to hang over the edge, let them soften. You'll see your knuckles sticking up a little bit. And then the heels on the ground, lining up your toes again. Smush the ball and ride it back up. I'll turn a little bit so you can see. And you're holding onto the wall, smush the ball, and ride it back up. This is the one, if you had tightness in the calf or the back of your ankle on the first side, you might feel it on this side too. And recognize I'm making this forceful movement downward into gravity by bending the knees, not rounding the back. So I'm just pushing down, and then the effortlessness of riding it back up. Toes stay soft, really focusing on pushing with the ball of the foot. Last one. And then we'll do the toes. So you can take the ball, you can even go down there, spread your toes out around the ball. Of course, it depends on the size of your ball. And you're going to squeeze the ball with the toes and release. Check to see your ears are over your shoulders, look straight ahead. So toe creases again, connected to your neck, craziness, right? We do all kinds of nerve flossing that connects neck and toes, sciatic nerve. But you're just squeezing and releasing right now. You can feel the presence of the movement in your feet, the muscles of your foot. And you can check the upper body, make sure nothing is tensing. And then you can also rock side to side with the ball, kind of squeezing the ball. Wake up, hydrate those feet. They're your feelers for the earth. Our first responders for our whole body. And it's good to remember that, we think our muscles move our body. Our brain moves our body, right? Our brain is responsible for all motion, and that, for the most part, and that your brain has to feel all the way down to your feet. It's a long trip. And then relax that. All right, come back and we'll just do a short assessment here again. Land and locate on both feet. Align your thigh bones over your ankles, the pelvis over the ankles, shoulders over the hips, ears over the shoulders. So check too, I always check that, I call it the ponytail nose, that your head's not too forward. You can slide your soft palate back a little bit and just feel yourself all the way from the toes to the crown of the head. Does anything feel different? Because right now your psoas is reading you. And it doesn't want to read you struggling, because it is the muscle that protects us. It is our main muscle of the fight or flight response. So it wants to know that we're healthy and strong and standing in alignment with ourselves. And then we're going to go ahead and go down onto the ground. So please grab your mat and I'll meet you down there. We're down on the ground and we're seated, and we're going to continue to feel ourselves from important attachment points of the psoas. So for this one, I typically switch from my tennis ball, which is pretty hard, to a softer. This is a soft rubber ball. You can also go to a smaller size ball. That's, like I said, I just keep all different sizes around. This one's soft and forgiving as well. But we're going to find our sits bone and the lesser trochanter, where the iliopsoas actually attaches. So you're going to take whatever size ball you want to take. Again, I'm going to do my big pink one. Let's extend the right leg, leave the left leg bent, and you're going to take that ball and put it right underneath your left sits bone. So if you don't know where it is, go ahead and feel around there. You'll feel the difference between bone versus muscle. And you can take the ball and just start to roll around. So doing this helps us to ground. And the psoas relaxes when we feel grounded, just like it relaxes when it can feel us all the way to the feet. So rather than being right on the bone, you can go to either side of the bone. I typically start by keeping the leg bent. And this is just a little exploration there. This is great too if you have any sort of pelvic floor dysfunction, which psoas can be the cause of. But then you can also take your leg out straight. I'll switch and bend the right leg. I get a little more movement that way, supporting myself with my hands. So right to the inner thigh area of that ball is where that iliopsoas attaches. So we're just getting familiar with that attachment point. Once again, because we're doing more of a myofascial, just check that whether the leg is straight or bent, the toes are relaxed. You can shake the leg out. If you find a really sensitive spot, do the same thing we did with the foot. Just stop and be still and let the weight of your thigh, of your pelvis fall into the ball. So can you feel yourself from this point in your body? That's all we're doing is we're allowing ourselves to locate these areas. And that's what creates that juiciness, that hydration. One more round. And then we'll relax that side. Switching sides, so if you didn't have a good experience, you know your ball's not right. You want to have the right density to the ball that it's comfortable. I'm going to start by bending the right leg, find that sits bone, put the ball on so I can find the ridge of it, the bony ridge first, but then I like to go either to the front or the back of the bony ridge. And this is a big point of attachment for a lot of your muscles. So just be gentle. If it gets away, put it back. You can keep that right foot on the floor and explore, or you can take the right leg out. Just watching that the toes are relaxed, the legs, so you're not tightening up through the foot. If you tighten your foot, then you know the leg line is tightening. Just exploring this space. Looking for any sensitivity, and if that's there, you can stop and just be still. This is one of my favorite ways to ground, to really allow ourselves to ground. In fact, there's a movement or a release we do in Thai yoga massage where the heel bone, someone else's, the masseuse's heel bone comes into your sits bone. It's a really amazing release. So you can kind of do this for yourself. Then come off of the ball with both legs extended. Eventually you're going to want to feel where the psoas attaches in the front. So in order to do that, you're going to keep the legs extended, but you can keep a soft bend in the knees. So if your hamstrings are tight, please roll something up, a blanket. That's another reason I have a blanket, and put it underneath your knees. So I'm going to relax the legs, jelly roll them a little bit. And then I'm not going to push, but I'm going to fall forward just slightly. Take your hands and feel your hip bones, right where the bony part of your hip, we call that the ASIS point, and then come just slightly inward towards the center of your belly, just inside of that. And push your fingers, not too hard, but about an inch into the inside of those sits bones, and like you're grabbing the sits bones and gently pulling them toward, away from your navel center, so outward. And then fold forward a little bit deeper, maybe just a little bit without forcing anything into your back. And then see if you can feel that area. Then come back up and lift up one leg. Can you feel any movement in the muscles there? So that's actually the ilium. And our hips are shaped like two baseball gloves. And it's the inside of your hip. So that's why we call it the iliopsoas. It's actually two muscles. But that's the ilium. And then if we want to feel the psoas major, we keep the fingers in that same area, but come slightly inward and push the fingers up towards the navel center and in towards the midline of the body, the center of the body, instead of outward. Go ahead and fall forward. Stick those fingers about an inch in. So some people will say they had their psoas manually manipulated or palpated. This is how we can feel our own psoas. And then go ahead again and lift a leg. Lift the other leg. See if you can find that muscle that's moving. I can feel mine right now. And that'll familiarize you with where that is. We're going to do some ball rolling on that area later too. And notice if there's sensitivity. That's really important too. And just lifting a leg and noticing. And then relax that. We're done sitting, and we're going to come down onto our left side. So you can set your balls aside. Maybe keep a block handy, and you'll see I have a blanket to go underneath my head. Not a pillow. I don't want to be too high. But we're going to come down onto the left side, and you can put that blanket underneath you to keep your neck in a neutral position. So the right side of the neck isn't any shorter than the left. We don't want to come up this high. And you're going to stack your knees for a moment and just let your right hip land on top of your left. And then you can extend that left leg a little bit further. So we want a slippery surface, and you're going to feel your right leg and let it come onto that slippery surface, the big toe side of the foot. Then you're going to begin to slide the right leg towards your head. And as you do that, try to get the pinky toe down to the ground. So you'll see if I just slide it towards me and stay on my big toe side of my foot, I have a lot more range of motion. I can pull all the way in. And that is psoas contracting, right? It's a hip flexor. But what we add by taking the pinky toes down and sliding it is the psoas also will externally rotate and what we say abduct the thigh. So we're really getting deep into the psoas with this one. And the contraction, we're sliding it towards us, lifting that inner knee and thigh up towards the sky, and then sliding it away. If you need to put socks on because you got a grippy surface, you could do that. Once I find the movement, the sliding forward, I like to add a little bit more stretching back, and I do it to my breath. As I breathe in, I'm going to slide the leg behind me, feeling that extension through the front of the hip. And then as I breathe out, I slide it toward me, feel that contraction towards the front of my body. And the head will add on. It likes to play too. I'll take my chin away from my chest as the leg stretches back. You can do that. Bring your chin towards your chest like you're looking at your foot as you breathe out. So always remembering if by adding another movement to this posture it gets to be too much, so you add your head and you're forgetting to keep your pinky toe down, then just do the leg first. Otherwise, we have another add-on. You can add your arm. As you're sliding that leg back, sweep your arm up and over. So we add that upper body connection of psoas. And then we can draw in on the exhalation, kind of squeezing the front body. Inhale, extend. Exhale, coming in. My gaze is just kind of following that right hand at this point. Sliding in. And drawing away. And this seems like such a simple movement, but you might notice some stickiness, and you might notice more stickiness on one side than the other. The idea is we're supposed to be able to easily slide the leg. We can only use our floor surface as so much of an excuse. I used that for a while as an excuse, and then realized I just had a sticky psoas on my right side. So making it juicy. One more time. You can always stop. That's the other thing. Remember, you can stop and hold and take a moment to land and locate that lengthening. And then the contraction. I'm going to have you roll onto your back. I'm going to flip so you'll see my right side. We're going to continue working with the right leg. But you're going to want to make sure you still have a slippery surface. So for me, that means I'm going to fold my mat in half. Both feet to the floor in what we call constructive rest pose. So my hips, my knees, and my ankles are in a line. And just like when we worked with the ball in the very beginning of class, you can feel those parts of your feet. So your psoas is actually sensing you through your feet. That's one of the beautiful things about constructive rest. But now you can also let your back and spine land and locate. Take a few breaths and notice how the inhalation is expansion. It's inviting upward and outward movement. The exhalation is our landing gear comes down and we let ourselves land and locate. The exhalation is connected to your parasympathetic nervous system, that relaxation response, and that's what the psoas needs to be juicy. It has a lot of importance. It has this connection to the diaphragm. And through the diaphragm is things like the vagus nerve, which is really important for that rest and digest part of us. So just breathing in a healthy way that we feel our back relaxing. And then we're going to find that pelvic tilting movement to the breath. If you want, you can place your hands on your belly. As you breathe in, allow the tailbone to press down and the low back to arch. As you breathe in, you're going to feel low back, low ribs go into the ground, but you're going to lift that right leg up and draw it in towards your body. So that'll really stretch the low back and the low ribs. As you inhale, take your foot back down, arch the back. Exhale, draw the leg in. And then take a moment to check your head and see if your head and neck are moving. That's usually a good indication. It's tail to tongue movement. As you're inhaling, the chin comes towards the chest. You'll feel the back of the neck flatten out and lengthen as the low back arches and shortens. And then as you exhale and the low back lengthens and flattens, the back of the neck will arch and chin comes away. So I like to think that the nose is following the tail on the inhale, and the tail is following the nose on the exhale. We're ready to add the next part. So next time you draw in, hold that for a few breaths. If it's okay and it's comfortable for you, we can find a little more contraction by reaching the fingertips forward. And if it's not contraindicated for the neck, tuck your chin towards your chest and lift your head up. So we're going to squeeze here for a few moments. This is the psoas in contraction. And then when you're ready on an inhalation, let your arms come down your shoulders and extend that right leg long. Let it relax, shake it out. Notice as you extend it, you're arching your back still. What happens now is you won't feel quite as much stretch perhaps through the front of the thigh, but as you exhale and press low back, low ribs into the ground, you're going to feel that stretch through the front of the thigh, maybe the inner thigh, might be in the low back. And then we arch and curl with the right leg long and relaxed. Exhaling into the curl and inhaling into the arch. Take a few of those. And slide the leg back. We have an option of adding arm to this movement. So again, it's juggling balls. If you want to just play with the leg, continue that, but I'm going to show it with the arm as well. So I inhale and arch my back, letting chin come towards the chest. Exhale, curl chin away from the chest. Now on an inhalation, I'm going to bring chin towards the chest, squeeze my thigh in, reach forward. So there's that same contraction. I'm even drawing the top of the foot towards the shin. So shortening the space from your navel center all the way through your throat. And now as I inhale and come down and extend the leg, I can also take my arm overhead. If it's floating, then bend the elbows so you want the bones to feel the floor. I'm still arching, and I can sense how I'm on the top of my right shoulder blade and the bottom of my right hip. The waist is lifted, the ribs are lifted. As I exhale, I gently press the ribs and the waist into the ground, into that curl. Inhale and arch, and exhale and curl. Now see if you can just allow the head to flow again, chin towards the chest on the inhale. Chin away from the chest, or the nose follows the tail as you breathe in. Tail follows the nose as you breathe out. So nice rocking motion. Slide it back in. We'll do one more. If you found there's too much pulling with the arm, then just work on the bottom half first. Take a rock forward on your inhalation. Exhale, curl the leg in, chin towards your chest. Maybe hold for just a few breaths. You got to breathe into your chest because you might feel that contraction through the belly. We actually can get into pelvic floor eventually with this too, pelvic floor contracted. And then we breathe in, slide the arm and the leg long, relax the weight of the arm and leg, arching the back. Exhale, curl, press ribs, right shoulder blade. So the whole right side of the body pressing down into the floor on exhalation and lifting away from the floor on inhale. as I qualify most somatic movements, we're always either pushing into with gravity or pulling away from, and certain parts of the body are doing the opposite. So as you're inhaling, the bottom of the pelvis and the right shoulder blade are pushing into the ground. You feel that arch through your spine. As you're exhaling, the pelvis and the tailbone lift and the shoulder might lift slightly, but we're pushing into the ground with the rib cage. One more round. And then if it's there, leave the arm long and the leg long. And we're going to come into what we sometimes call a little bit of a Yin Posture. Hold to release and relax more. And if in this hold, what we're going to be doing is dropping the left leg open to the side. If the left leg is up in the air somewhere, take your blanket, your block, and support the leg. You're going to start to walk the right leg and arm towards the left side of the mat. So creating a C curve through that right side. As far as you can go comfortably without letting the hip and the shoulder blade lift up. So you want to keep that right side body on the ground, just reaching over. And then gently and slowly pulsate the arm and leg a little bit. See how that feels. So it feels like the arm and leg are going to the left side, creating the curve, but what you really want to do is get into the torso, right? That's where the psoas is. So using arm and leg to create this lateral bend in the spine, and I find that my head likes to pulsate too. It just gently nods no as I go back and forth. You can see what your head wants to do. Let me know. This little pulsation, and then just stop and rest. If your arm's way off the floor, you either need to bend your elbow or support it. Otherwise, what I sometimes do is take my left hand, clasp my right wrist, and gently traction the body further over, if that's available to you. But we're going to land and locate. We're going to be in this posture for about a minute. And think of that right side. Notice the spaciousness of the right side as you breathe in. You can breathe in now, focusing on your right lung. And as you breathe out, release the right side body into the ground. You might start with the weight of the arm and the leg. Let them go into the ground. So notice if you're tensing muscles anywhere to hold yourself. Then reposition the body, maybe come out of it a little bit. Because we really want to focus on the exhalation and that parasympathetic, that relaxation response. Keep releasing on the exhale. And you can feel the levity of the inhale as it fills your right lung. Focusing on the right side. You can sense all the space from the toes to the fingers, remembering that we are one piece. We like to think of these little muscles like we can isolate these muscles and just work on them on their own, but that's not true. Even with the psoas, you've got to really sense that whole fascial line through your right side. All of the tissues and the way they're connected and speak to one another. Your brain in your head, your brain in your gut, your brain in your feet. We talked about that. But also the way that the intimate relationship that takes place between your psoas and your respiratory diaphragm as you're breathing right now. You can even make your exhalation longer than your inhale, if that feels good. Last few breaths. And then you can slide the arm and leg back slowly, however that feels best for you. Lift up the left leg. Take both legs long just for a moment, arms to your sides, and just pause and feel yourself at center, wherever you locate your center. And then from center, feel your right and left side. Just sensing any differences between the right and the left. This again is a time to just yield your body into the ground and land and locate. And let your brain explore any similarities, any differences between the two sides, and use those descriptive words to describe to yourself, what do you feel through right and left? You can just roll onto your belly. I'm again going to turn so you'll see me better, but we're going to move into a position with the ball again. So this is where I like to use the cloth, and I'm going to use a softer ball. You might choose a smaller ball. But when we were in the beginning, we showed how we could feel, we could actually palpate the psoas in the front, and we're going to go into that on the right side. So coming onto the front side, you can take your ball. I put the washcloth or something on top of it. It gives it a little extra padding and also helps to keep it from rolling all over the place. So when you found that spot, or the other way to find it is if you find that hip bone again, that ASIS in your navel center, and you bring the two fingers together, that's right about where your ball wants to be, the midway point between the navel center and that bony hip mark. And you're going to come down, first just come down into what we call Crocodile Pose. Coming onto my belly. And on my belly, I cross opposite arm to elbow, or opposite hand to elbow. Slide my elbows in, rest my forehead on my top arm. This gives me the opportunity to shake the pelvis and the jelly roll the legs and let myself relax. If for any reason the legs are not relaxing because the way the feet are extended into what's called plantar flexion, that can cause cramping for a lot of people in the calves, then what you would do is take a blanket, roll it up, and put that blanket underneath your ankles. Mine's a little high, but bear with me here. Right there. And we're just letting ourselves, like now we're landing and locating on the front side. So before I put any sort of balls down there, I would just want to allow myself to relax. Forehead on the top arm bone. If you're still feeling any tension in the low back, you can even take your legs up towards the sky and gently windshield wiper them side to side. That's a nice way, a nice little release valve there. And then let those legs relax. Feel the tops of the thighs, the front of the pelvis releasing into the ground. And you should have just a light lift through the chest and perhaps a slight stretch in the fronts of the thighs. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the ball, whatever size you chose with your washcloth, and you're going to take it into that point right halfway between the navel center and the hip point. So you'll know right away if it's too big, or if you just ate a meal, it definitely will not feel good. So you should be able to just put the ball there, and we're not going to really move much, maybe a slight rocking of the pelvis. We're just going to let it stay there. If you can't release your weight into the ball comfortably because there's either that much pain or that much sensation is the word I like to use, you have to decide, then either the ball is too big, it's too hard, or you're just not ready for this yet. So I'm just letting the ball soften into that right side of the psoas, right at the bottom point. But what can help me to soften into it is sensing this little bit of spaciousness in my chest that I'm creating with my arms, because your chest and your collarbones are lifted off the ground. And I'm going to breathe into the upper portion of my psoas. Think of where your diaphragm meets with the center of your spine, the 12th vertebrae of your spine. Going to breathe all the way into that space on the inhale. Feel my chest rise up, my rib cage expand. And then as I breathe out, I'm going to release the weight of the pelvis into the ball, release the thighs. So I kind of partition the body in half between where the diaphragm is. That's the divider. In the upper body, I'm focusing on inhalation and expansion, everything above the diaphragm. And then on the exhalation, allowing the lower body, everything below the diaphragm, to release and relax. And the diaphragm truly does divide your body in half. You have your abdominal cavity below and your chest or thoracic cavity above. And creating space in the upper half of the body, focusing on that space as you breathe in. And just feeling the weight of your body releasing and yielding as you breathe out in the lower half. If you like to add just a little movement, you can gently rock or just relocate that ball slightly. Sometimes moving it a half an inch one way or the other will change your experience for the better. Always make sure it is for the better. But just gently rocking the hips. And the ball helps to create this awareness point. And you're releasing and relaxing. You can describe to me in your comments, and I always appreciate that, what you felt. I know I will share with you when I put this on my right side today, for whatever reason, it shot right into my trochanter, where I feel it, where we were rolling the ball in the beginning on the sits bone. I felt it right there at that attachment point. But notice for yourself where you feel this, if you do. Taking a few more breaths. And then you can come off of the ball, pull that out if you'd like. Press your hands down, and we'll be rolling onto the right side of the body next. From the right side of the body, we'll start with the Psoas Slide. So stacking left hip on top of the right. You might need to bend the knees to do that. Let your right side relax, perhaps a blanket underneath your head to get your neck in a neutral position. Then slide that left foot slightly forward so the big toe side of the foot is on the ground, and you can feel that. Feel the big toe side. Your right leg has to strengthen or lengthen just enough to get out of the way. And then you're going to slide the leg towards you, and as you slide it towards you, try to get that pinky toe side down, or think of lifting the inner thigh up towards the sky, and then sliding it away. If you want to do that to your breath, we exhale and slide it towards you. Inhale and lengthen it away. And for now, I'm not going into full extension. I'm focusing more on the contraction coming towards me. I can add the head reaching away, chin away from the chest as the leg lengthens. Looking down at my knee as the leg comes in. And then I might start to take that foot further back behind me, reaching through the front of the thigh, sliding it forward. Again, watch that you're not just keeping that big toe side down. Get that benefit of lifting the thigh and externally rotating the thigh. Extending. If you liked adding the arm on the last side, you can do it on this side as well. But the two sides may respond differently. So we can sweep the arm, feel that stretch through the side body muscles. My gaze follows my hand. And then drawing it back in. This one I tend to keep more of a continuous motion, but always the opportunity for you to stop and just hold and be still in either one of these places, any one of these places along the way. Getting deeper into the extension of the hip here now. And I can draw that elbow in if I remember to keep my pinky toe side down. So you get some interesting sensations probably in that outer hip, right? As you're drawing in. But also notice the response of your torso. Doing one or two more of these slides. Last one. And then relax. You're going to be coming onto your front side. I'm switching just so you can see me. And then I'm also, again, going to fold my mat so I can enjoy and appreciate the slippery surface. We'll start with feet on the ground in our constructive rest position. Feel your feet. Let your body land and locate. Really important with the psoas. We're trying to make it juicy, which is not stretching it, it's relaxing it. Not an active stretch in any way. And then just feel that left foot and leg. Arch your back as you breathe in, so belly will rise, low back lifts. Curl the low back and low ribs down, or lift the tailbone a little bit as you breathe out. But then we add that left leg coming in, so we're still inhaling into the arch. Exhale, curl the leg in. Inhale, arch. Exhale, draw the leg in. And my neck automatically starts to move, but if it doesn't, think tail to tongue. As you're exhaling, the leg is drawing in and you're contracting the psoas. The chin goes back and the tail follows it. As you inhale and foot, we push into the foot, lift the hips, lift the back and spine. Chin follows the tail forward. Or the nose. I often think of moving from the nose. And just recognizing that your body reads it differently if you think of moving from your chin versus your nose. See how that fits? All of this is good stuff. And then we'll add the lengthening of the leg. So next time you exhale, draw the leg in. If you want to add the upper body, hug that thigh in, reach your fingers forward. If it's okay for your neck, you can also tuck your chin towards your chest. Reach up. So I'm now shortening all the muscles in the front line of the body, including the throat. I'm reaching in. So actively contracting front body. And then I'm going to take an inhalation, drop the shoulders and the arms, let them relax, extend the leg, make sure I arch my back, especially on this first one, so I'm not pulling right away into the front of the thigh. Exhale, curl. Think of pressing the back of the low left back into the ground, and just take some arches and curls. Left leg relaxed. There's a tendency to tighten the muscles in that left leg, right? You don't want to do that. You want to let it relax. And just arching and curling. See if your head responds and goes along for the ride. That's always a good sign. And we'll slide it in. We'll do it again, especially if your head was responding, then you could probably add the arm, but just recognize we can have tightness through the trapezius muscles. There's lots of stuff that can go on from the psoas in the upper body too. So sometimes it's good to address one half, typically the bottom first and then the top. So you're inhaling into the arch. Exhaling into the curl, hold that curl, lift up, take a few breaths, actively reaching fingers forward, chin towards the chest. You can draw the transversus abdominis in. If you've done my other videos, you know that, and the pelvic floor. So all of that is interconnected and contracted along with the psoas. And now as I inhale, I'll let the leg extend out, but also let my left arm go overhead. I'm arching that left side, lifting, letting it lift. Feel the rib cage go up, and then as I exhale, I take the back of the ribs into the ground, curling down. Inhaling and arching, and exhaling and curling. And if the arm's up in the air, try doing this with the arm bent or maybe further down. I'm able to get full extension, but not everybody is, and that's okay. Relax the top of the shoulder and arch and curl. See if your head is responding, chin towards the chest as you arch the back. Chin away from the chest as you curl. Also watch that you're not tightening those leg muscles. Bring it back in. We'll do one more on that side. Sliding the leg in. Inhale and arch. Exhale, curl. Bring the leg in. I usually take another inhale unless I'm ready to go up. Exhale. Head lifts in. I'm reaching forward. Feel everything tighten. From the base of the throat all the way through the pelvic floor. And then inhale, release that. Slide the arm and leg, arch the back. Take a few arches and curls. Inhaling and arching, and feel your rib cage. We're focusing on that left side of the body now. And then this one will take into that yin-like hold. So you can have that left arm overhead if it works for you. You can start to walk both of your legs over to the right side of the mat and reach your left arm to the right side of the mat. So creating that C curve, but not so far that we're rolling onto the right side of the body. We want to, as best we can, keep the connection of the back of the left hip and shoulder blade on the ground. Just slowly walking and then pulsate the arm and leg. I think of like they're just kind of moving in the wind a little bit, pulsating them side to side. Check that there's no strain in the hip or the shoulder by gently plugging the arm bone into the shoulder girdle and the hip into the pelvic girdle. So you're feeling that through the side body. And my head likes to just kind of go along for the ride. It's like a little wave. It's going back and forth. I know my neck is relaxed that way. I'm not tensing my jaws. And then we'll pause. Find that space where you can be long through your whole left side from the toes to the fingers, but release the weight of the back of the hip and shoulder blade into the ground. I usually drop my right leg open, but if the right outer knee is not touching the ground, a block or a blanket underneath there can bring a lot more support in. If you want to get a little further into side stretch, right hand can come in and help by clasping the left hand and sort of tractioning your body over there. But again, not at the expense of rolling the left side of the body off the ground. I'm going to keep that down. And now we just breathe and be in that left side. Think of your left lung. Feel it expand as you breathe in. That's the active part of our breath. Our heart rate increases slightly. It's connected to our sympathetic, so that fight or flight. And the psoas usually gets enough of that throughout the day, because it responds not only to physical threats, but emotional threats. So any sort of stress, trauma, it's the psoas' job to respond and protect us. So what we can do to counter that is focus on the exhalation. Allowing your body to yield into the ground each time you breathe out. Sense the space all the way through that entire left side. That connectivity of all the tissues through the left side. Then we lengthen, we land, and we locate with all that space. Maybe making the exhalation a little bit longer. You can even pause at the bottom of the exhale. Just appreciating this opportunity for stillness and awareness in the psoas on the left side. You can also notice the right side. The right side is in compression. The left side is expanded. But we expand on the inhale, we release and relax on the exhale. If you feel like your body is opening and you can take it a little further for these last few breaths, do that. Remembering that the muscles relax onto the bones in this kind of stretch. It's a passive stretch. We're allowing the bones to hold us, the weight of the bones connecting with the earth. Sometimes I find my head just wants to make some nice little wiggles. And we'll get ready to slowly walk out of that side by sliding your arm down, your leg back to center. Take the right leg along next to the left and just pause again. So we want to come back to feeling ourselves from the center. You might feel your center by your navel. And from your center, reach out through the pelvis and to the tips of the toes. Just noticing any differences, what feels the same, what can you see or image in your body, accepting what you don't see, feeling those spaces where there is no sensation. It's all a part of the experience. And psoas needs to be able to read all of that. As the muscle of your midline, it's always reading information. All right, and then we're going to finish with that little bit of palpation into the left side with the ball. So you're going to roll onto your front side. I'm going to turn so you can see me. Grab the ball, whichever ball worked on the first side probably should work on this side too, but less is absolutely more. So smaller the ball, you'll see I also have a wool dryer ball here, and I use different balls all the time. That's why I keep this whole stock. Because sometimes I like the softness and the forgiving feeling of the wool dryer ball, yet it's bigger. So I'll switch it around sometimes. I'll do different balls. We come down onto the front before we put the ball onto there. First, just settle into your across in a crocodile pose. So we draw opposite hand to elbow. Draw the elbows in slightly and let your forehead rest on your top arm bone so you feel just that little lift through the chest. And you might just get away with jelly rolling the legs. Remember, if your ankles are uncomfortable or your calves are cramping, then put something underneath the ankles, a rolled blanket. But you can shift your hips side to side. If you need more movement, take the soles of the feet up and just gently rock the legs. Just want to feel the fronts of the thighs. When the fronts of the thighs are stretching, the psoas is stretching. So we want to let them relax and release. And you might sense just that little bit of lengthening through the front of the hip crease, the spaciousness of the front of the torso, but without compressing the backside. So let your tailbone be heavy towards the ground so that low back can have its natural curve but still be long, just like in the very beginning when we were standing. Land and locate, and then when we're ready, we take the ball in, and it goes to that space right halfway, midway between the navel center and the ASIS point. So this is my much more sensitive side, including having an incisional hernia, so I'm very cautious when I put it in there. And know that if you are really sensitive, you do not have to go right on the muscle. Go to the side of it slightly. I did that for years. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. Bring it down a little bit so you're not right on it. Or if you don't know where the muscle is, just don't go right on the sensitive spot, right? You want to be able to breathe easily. And let the weight, think of the weight of the back of your pelvis releasing into the ground, releasing into the front of the pelvis. The thighs are still relaxed. And then we come into the diaphragm as our dividing line between top and bottom. As we breathe in, we're allowing the front body particularly, but the whole upper body to expand. You can even feel the backs of the ribs expanding. Think of that space where the diaphragm is attaching to your 12th vertebrae in the back. And with every breath out, the lower body, everything below the diaphragm, is releasing its weight into the ground. So you're just yielding into the ground on the exhalation with the low body. Feel the vitality and the lifting, the lightness of the upper body as you breathe in. You can really gently rock the hips side to side if that feels okay. But in no way should this be painful or even discomfort. It should be, when you first get on there, you might wonder what you're doing if you've never done this. But you should be at the point where it's pleasurable. There's absolutely sensation, but it's not causing you pain. Your teeth aren't gritting. Your muscles aren't tightening to protect you. And continuing with the breath. Inhaling, your body lifts. There's a lightness to your body, upper body. Exhaling, lower body. You can feel the weight of your bones just releasing into the ground. Particularly the tops of the thighs, fronts of the hip creases, into that ball. Notice where you feel it beyond the ball. You might have the most sensation, obviously, where the ball itself is. But do you feel any other sensations throughout the left leg line, maybe even into the upper back? Last few breaths. And you can take that ball out from under you. And it's time for relaxation. Before we do that, you'll want to bring your chair in. That's what we're going to do for our relaxation, is use our chair today. Or couch. I got my chair here. As I mentioned, you could also put your legs up on a couch, depending on where you are in your house. But I hope you've made it this far with me. This is, on its own, probably the most powerful thing we can do to hydrate, to make the this psoas juicy. And we're going to do a constructive rest position with the legs supported in the air. So you can see I brought in a couple extra blankets. I like to put one blanket underneath my pelvis because it deserves a little extra support. And then I also am going to take the second blanket, and you may do one or both of these, it's up to you, and I'm going to create a neck roll. So I'm going to take that blanket and roll it just a little bit. So that's going to go right under the cervical curve in my neck. Put that to the back. And I've also got a blanket on the chair, mostly because this is a metal chair, it's kind of hard. And I like being padded. You know, your body is sensing what's underneath you, right? And when it senses soft things, it wants to relax. It's harder to relax into hard things. So there's my blanket set up for this. And if you've ever done legs up the wall, it's similar to that. I'm going to sit on the blanket, support myself with my hands, and swing the legs up. Once my legs are up, I let my calves relax onto the blanket or the chair. Make sure the blanket is under the pelvis where I want it, and come down. And this is where I can pull this neck roll in. And you might lose me. I'm going to have to watch the time on this one. And I'm going to support the neck in its neutral position. So I'm not lifting the head up. I'm just taking that roll part to feel as if the neck is supported, but still with that natural curve. I can gently rock my head side to side. So find your position. I'm there. I'm going to give you a moment to find that position. So the thing we've lost compared to our regular constructive rest is the feet are no longer touching the earth. So your focus on landing and locating can be more in your torso itself. You might even place your hands on your belly. Belly would locate the lower part of the psoas, or up on your ribs for the upper part. Wherever you want to feel that attachment. And we just explore that beautiful relationship between diaphragm and psoas. We did one side of the body and the other, particularly in the Yin pose, and now we bring harmony and balance by breathing into both sides equally. The inhalation is the levity, the lightness, and the lifting, and allow your body to feel that expansion. The exhalation is an opportunity to yield, to release the weight of the body into the ground. So let the ground support you. You do not need to hold yourself up in any way. Just noticing the tone of your breath, where your breath is starting, where it finishes. And perhaps beginning to exhale a little bit longer. Take that sweetness as long as you can as you exhale. Be present in that sweetness of the exhalation, the bones in your body relaxing. So just by breathing to the diaphragm, focusing on the exhalation, we bring ourselves into that parasympathetic state, that relaxation response. You could say rest and digest, and that's exactly what happens. Our heart rate relaxes, our body allows for better digestion. Just a few things that happen. And remembering that psoas goes through all of those parasympathetic organs, goes right down through there. And it's sensing just the way you're breathing in that intimate connection between the diaphragm and psoas. I'm going to leave you in this quiet space for about a minute. Just explore your breath, the relationships of the diaphragm, that dome-shaped muscle, as it contracts on inhale and releases on exhale, allowing the whole body to rest and relax every time you breathe out. invite your psoas to feel yourself from the space of your breath again, whether it's the movement of the physical breath or visualizing the pranic breath touching different organs of your body, different tissues. If you are in a restful space, please stay there as long as you'd like. But in the interest of not having a 2-hour video, I'm going to take my hands to my heart center and say thank you. If you are ready to come out, you're going to roll to your side first, and please pause in a fetal curl before you come back up to seated. Let all of the systems of your body relocate you, and that takes a moment to do before you sit up. So thanks again for joining me. Peace, joy, love and light, and juicy psoas. And get ready. I will be offering half-hour-long sessions every morning at 8 a.m. for 2 weeks in April. So that's my big news. I'll be announcing it more formally, but if you made it to the end of the video, I will be doing live streams in the month of April for 2 weeks.